Commanders. How are we doing today? Hopefully you all are doing very well. Hopefully this month has treated you well, that you've enjoyed it, even if you didn't unlock the Gorn Eviscerator, that you were still able to see some things you're able to unlock or get some fun things at Event Store. But today I want to talk to you specifically about my thoughts about Pelia, new Strange New Worlds officer this month, kind of talk about her value and maybe some additional things that I'm thinking of going forward. And keep in mind that since I did not see enough value to actually outright buy the Gorn Eviscerator, I don't have Pelia yet. So a lot of my comments and feedback are from people I've listened or talked to, and just trying to get a feel for how Pelia works and where her value is. That doesn't mean to say that she is or isn't valuable, but these are the best that I can come up with right now since I can't do testing yet. So let's talk about Pelia, and let's talk about her abilities. And after we're done, and after I've done my analysis and shared with you my thoughts on where I see her valuable, feel free to leave a comment below and let me know if you have unlocked Pelia, if you agree, disagree, or any other feedback that you can give to me or other players that may be watching the video. So as I pull this up, remember, if you are new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, please do so. It really does help grow the channel. And remember to hit that thumbs up and the bell notification so you can be aware of future content as I release it. So in STFC.space, let's look at Pelia. Does not have a captain's maneuver, so no benefit as captain. The main things we'll want to be talking about here are the officer ability and the below decks ability. The officer ability, Pelia reduces isolated damage received from non-armada hostiles by 2%. And that 2% goes all the way up to 20% at max level. And as a rare officer, much easier to max out than, say, an epic, so that is certainly possible. My understanding with this is that she's kind of like a Chen. And what do I mean by that? Well, Chen, for those who don't know, Chen reduces incoming regular standard damage, energy damage, by a certain percent. So while the percentages are different, Pelia will reduce incoming damage by a certain percent based upon her, not her tier. I think I said that incorrectly. Actually, yes, based upon her tier. Keep confusing that sometimes, the captain's ability, but based upon her tier, 1 through 5 will reduce damage by that amount. The current thought in the community is that this ability, while helpful, you have to keep in mind how much isolate damage you're actually receiving. The percentage of damage has to be significant enough that this is going to reduce it enough to make sense having her as a bridge officer, to take up one of those bridge slots. You have to think about what are some other potential bridge officers that might impact the reduction of isolated damage by enough that it's going to make sense. One option that we may want to keep in mind is she would probably pair well with James Kirk, the epic officer that was released this month to add synergy to his captain's ability. But just based upon the percentage alone, she doesn't seem to add significant value yet. One thing I will say, though, and this is like the one caveat that we have to keep in mind, is that it seems like we've had this trend lately of more isolitic stuff, whether it's damage, isolitic defense, what have you, that has been added to the game by Scopely. Isolitic is separate from standard damage, where your regular mitigation will not affect isolitic at all. And so we then have to look at isolatic damage being reduced or isolitic defense, which we'll talk about in her below decks ability in a second here. But is there a possibility that they will come out, Scopely will come out with harder, more difficult officers? There's certainly some argument to that, because we have seen, like I said, trends with more isolatic type hostiles. The Gorn this month, for example, use them as an example, that you know, you can only damage them with isolytic damage, and they do a pretty good amount of isolytic damage themselves. So we'll just have to see how the future months pan out, okay? So keep that in mind. While it may not be super awesome right now, if we come out with a hostile that does a huge amount of isolytic damage, then this may make more sense as using a bridge slot, an officer bridge slot for her. Okay, let's talk about this below decks ability. She increases isolytic defense by 10% at tier 1, all the way up to 100% at tier 5. My understanding is that this works like an efficiency research. What that means is that you get diminishing returns with a potential purchase, the higher or the more isolytic defense you already have. For example, the calculation basically is the damage, in this case, the amount of damage incoming, isolytic damage incoming, you take that and you divide that by 1 plus all of your percentages for isolytic defense. So if you have no isolytic defense, for example, which we've seen in artifacts, we'll have a glance here in a second here in artifacts, and then there's also some 50 plus research that helps, and we've done other videos, but I just want to point those out in case someone missed that. I think it was my alliance had said, I didn't even remember about that 50 plus research. Well, there you go. So we'll glance at that real quick here in a second. But if you had 0, like no isolytic defense whatsoever, but you had a max Pelia, you would take 1, or you take the damage, divide by 1 plus this 100%. If you get Pelia and you already had like 100 or 200%, well, then she may not be as valuable because you're gaining diminishing returns for the more and more and more isolytic defense that you're adding. That doesn't mean she's not valuable. What I'm trying to point out with that explanation is this. If you are a player that has absolutely no isolytic defense, then a purchase for Pelia or a purchase for the Gorn Eviscerator so you can unlock Pelia quicker may make more sense because you'll get more value out of it quicker. But for those who already have maybe some primes, because there are primes in the game, if you already have artifacts, if you already have some 50 plus research in, then will you still get some benefit from this? For sure, but it may not be as huge as someone who didn't have any isolytic defense at all. So she certainly has a place where she can help. The argument that you have to consider of putting her below decks is, do you have an available slot for her? So if you're using a ship, say like the Tally for your Gorn hunting, like I know some people are, you have plenty below deck slots to use. If I'm using my Sanctus G5 rare ship, it's tier 5 right now, I don't have another slot really. It's kind of tough. I only have like 3 slots I can use below deck. So you have to kind of play with it and see. But the tough part right now about using her below decks is, do you have enough slots that make sense? So this is going to be player to player specific, I think, on how much research you already have. Doesn't mean you shouldn't use her below decks. It's just how much value you can get out of it compared to using another officer, whether that's Hull Breach or someone that's increasing damage, whatever it is. It just depends upon your current research you already have in the game. So let's look here for those who don't know, just a quick refresher. If we hop into artifacts, there's a couple of artifacts I'll point out real quick and you can go through the others. But dual generators is a good one that you can get through doing your Voyager loop. For those who have a Voyager, that you can do your turn-ins, your mining, your anomaly mining that you do, and you can turn in to get these dual generators. Currently have mine at level 10, 27% isolytic defense, so that's great. There's also some I'm still currently working on, but Turian's Spear, for example, increases isolate defense for interceptors. Of course, it scrolls back up on me. But that's just one. There's a couple down here. Was it Nero's Trident? No, that's officer stats. I apologize. I think Cisco's Baseball was one. Yep. For explorers. And was it the coin? Yep, for battleships. So that's just a quick look at some of the artifacts there. Let's hop into the research tree real quick. And territory tree. Is it the territory? Yeah, territory tree. So you've got at the end of the territory tree right here, you've got damage, isolate damage, as well as the defense. So I'll just look at this one here. Isolate damage for Romulan ships. And I do have some items, so I could do some of these. Haven't decided to spend them yet. But then isolate defense. So it's specific to the type of ship, whether it's Federation, Klingon, or Romulan. You'll have to decide what research you would like to do. So this is another place where you can get some isolytic research in there. And then the Monavine also has some isolytic stuff in it, you can see. Isolate damage and so forth. So there's some research for defense and for damage within the game. So those are things just to kind of pay attention to. But ultimately, I think Pelia is going to help those who don't, especially as a below deck officer, those who don't have much of any in the artifacts or in the research area. I think she certainly has potential there, and obviously we'll have to see what comes out in the game. If more things come out in the game that are that do even more isolytic damage, then her value certainly does increase as an officer or a below deck officer. It's interesting. I think some players, and just being honest, I think some players just are just like, hey, just give me the crew, give me the one crew I can use. Well, Scopely's come out more and more to make the game interesting, where you have to know the game well enough, I guess, in a way to know, okay, I'm going to go hit this type of hostile, I have to change the crews up. So on the one hand, that's annoying because you may have to go back to base to reset your crews. On the other, it kind of makes it kind of interesting and fun to kind of figure out what crews you need to hit certain type of hostiles. So anyways, leave your comments below. Hopefully you had a good month once again, but hopefully we'll be able to get the path at some point to unlocking the Gorn Eviscerator for the free-to-play, so that everyone will have a chance to work on officers like Pelia and other strange new world officers. So anyways, that's it for me today. Keep learning, keep growing, keep having fun, and remember, don't let Scopely tell you how you should play your game. Play on your own terms. Only buy packs if you have the money and you feel like that's something fun that you want to do. But keep having fun. Keep living it up, and we will see you next time.